Hello, young people, psychology enthusiasts, psychology students, practicing psychologists, all of you, welcome to the summer of 2024. In what we've been doing starting from May, this is our last of the internships that we do. We started with summer internship for online for school students of grade 11 and 12. We followed it up with a pro-social peer moderator program for from grade 8 to 12. And then we had physical summer internships for school kids. And now this is a 75-hour internship for psychology students. So, on behalf of the Fortis National Mental Health Program, Adayu Mindfulness, all of us here, a warm welcome to you. Life is a continuous learning process. Um, there is nobody who will reach a stage where we can say, I know this. As long as I know that I don't know, I will continue to learn and grow and remember this forever. Narcissism will come and hit us hard. Every time we'll read a chapter, we'll finish a course, narcissism will come and hit us, and we'll think we know it all. We'll do a certificate course and we think we'll do it all. Some of you may end up sharing your internships here on platforms, and we'll think we've learned something. You've learned something, but that will be a droplet in an ocean that psychology or any science for that matter is. So, as a par, yes, good afternoon, all of you. Good to have you here. Just a couple of things before we start with this. You'll be having sessions every day. 24 of our experts from across the Fortis network are going to talk to you every day. There are going to be some assignments, lots of things that we are going to be covering during these 15 days. We've thought a lot about the kind of topics we've had. Towards the end, if you want more topics, different topics that you would want to talk about, you can write a mail to anuna.bordoloi@fortishealthcare.com. That's anuna.bordoloi@fortishealthcare.com, and let me put a face to that as well. So anuna.bordoloi@fortishealthcare.com. If you have any questions, you do that. If any of these days, if you feel our experts have not answered all your questions, you send a mail to anuna.bordoloi@fortishealthcare.com. 1,200 questions a day is something that Aruna would be uh, able to without any problems. This is an academic exercise. Let's do this in the seriousness of it is. Feel free to ask questions. We will try and answer as many questions that we can. This is not a course. We call it an internship, right? Nomenclature doesn't have any meaning in life, content and substances, right? So let's keep a very positive frame for these 15 days and learn and enjoy the process of learning. You want to drop the email to get it for the questions? Sure. Anuna.bordoloi@fortishealthcare.com. Anuna looks after our academic initiatives. Um, we do not have any physical internships at the Fortis Network. Primarily young people, because in private setups, not too many people get a chance to sit with patients, and they end up wasting a lot of their time. The students don't get enough exposure, so we don't do it here. And in online, without consent, somebody sitting is it's not okay in any case. Fortis Healthcare does not charge for any form of internships. People, whoever wants to can, we don't. Uh, Everybody can have their own approach to how they want to go about it. The assignments will be given to you after every session. The assignments will be application based questions, and then you can read a bit based on the content shared with you, and we'll be taking the answers. Today, as we start, is going to be our first session. Today's session is divided in two parts. Part one is where Roshni Sondi Abbey, a clinical psychologist with us, who also heads the psychological services for the Adayu vertical of the Fortis National Mental Health Program. She's going to talk about the new policy, career paths for psychologists. Feel free to engage with her. And towards the last part, probably in the last hour or so, I'll join you again, and I'll be taking questions on ethics of practice, ethics in our branch, and that will be a freewheeling uh, conversation with all of you, and Roshni will be asking me questions, and you can also ask me the same. An attendance link has just been added. Please ensure that you fill in your attendance. Attendance and assignments both will be mandatory for you to get your certificate at the end of the 15 days. You will need to have an 80% attendance, and you will need to submit all the assignments. Right? I'm not going to waste more of your time. I'm going to introduce Roshni, and I am going to. So that's Roshni Sondi Abbey. She's a clinical psychologist. And like I said, she heads psychological services for Adayu, which is our vertical for the Fortis National Mental Health Program. Now, if you filled in the attendance once, you don't need to fill it again. Uh, you will get some of these details, but okay, now all of you, one last time. You'll attend the session, you'll take the questions. At the end of the session, you'll be given assignments which you fill in before your internship's over, and your assignments will be given at the end of the session. So you can't find them, they will be given to you, right? Okay, let's start the session with Roshni. Enjoy the session. This is an academic exercise. Um, let's enjoy this. And I shall join you again in about an hour and a half. And that's when I'll talk to you about ethics. Right now, it's Roshni and all of you.
Thank you so much, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to day one of our internship. Um, just adding the presentation. So, like sir introduced, today the kicking off the internship is understanding the scope of psychology in the context of the recent national education policy that has come up. Um, this topic has been introduced because whatever interactions we've been having with young students from schools, from colleges, and even professionals in the past couple of years, there's been lots of conversations, a lot of discussions, and we thought if we're discussing in scope of psychology, it'll be helpful if we at least start talking about the actual policies that have been put out there to try and understand what is the rationale behind these policies and how it's going to impact us and the choices that we make in our career in psychology. So, like Sir said, let's keep this interactive. Um, any questions? I'll keep pausing because there is going to be a lot of information in these policies. These are documents which are, I cannot change the language. So I'll be quoting some things which are mentioned in the policies as it is. And let's see what we can interpret from it. And a little heads up, it is still tentative. So the implementation is due to start this academic session. But as we speak, even yesterday, I think yesterday morning, I again read another notification where there are further roundtable meetings happening. So let's see first what is already out there declared, and then let's see what sense we can make from it. So let's get started. When we are choosing a career in psychology, so many questions that come to our mind, and I've over the years had students come and ask me, should I choose psychology? Why should I choose it? Do you think I'm fit to be a psychologist? And my typical answer is it's like any other profession. You don't choose, are you going to be fit to be an engineer? Do you want to be? So whether it's a choice you're making, then you look at the competence and then you look at the skill sets. All of these things can be acquired. No one is born a psychologist. No one is born an engineer. No one is born a doctor. You need to learn. You need to work hard. You need to acquire those skill sets. Similarly, for psychology. When we're talking about choosing a career in psychology, rather than saying which college, what reason, what qualifications I need to have, before that, we need to know a little bit about some facts and figures. And a lot of numbers on this slide, if you could see. So in 2022, WHO said about 1 in 8 people in the world living with a mental disorder at any given point in time. Next year, in 2023, close to 60 to 70 million people reported to be suffering from a severe mental disorder, which means they're the people who actually sought treatment and were diagnosed, because this is how many people were reported. There would possibly be more who were undiagnosed. Going back to 2013, it was found globally that 70% individuals who actually needed support refrained and hesitated from seeking help. And that just goes to show the gap that exists. If we look specifically in India, recently this year itself, there was a survey done which showed that India needs around 30 to 35 million psychologists. And as per the current norms at that point of time, the registered psychologists at this moment were only 23,000 that were found on the record. So again, if you see every year in India, there are between 700 to 1,000 mental health professionals who are trained. The shortage, which basically boils down to, again, 0.07 psychologists per 100,000 people. That's the gap that exists. So when someone asks me, should I choose a career in psychology? If you're thinking about it, think about it also looking at the need, so that you know the gap you're trying to fill, you know the cause you are working towards. Yes, so let's start with the National Education Policy that was released in 2020. For those of us who haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. Okay, the actual policy is more than 60, 70 pages. So I'm not going to get into the entire policy. Let's look at the part of it which is relevant for us. Just to understand where this policy is coming from, the goals behind creating such an education policy, which also this education policy has been revamped over a lot of years. This time, their rationale was they want to introduce more flexibility. Now, this has started from school level till higher education also, where they're trying to introduce more options to drop in, to drop out. So entry and exit points at various courses, more flexibility in choosing subjects. So across various facets of education, they're trying to introduce a lot more flexibility. That's one rationale. Second, they want to increase universality, which means if I'm studying in country A and I'm going to be moving to country B, or even city A to city B, or one education board to another education board, to try and make the education system more universal, where there will be some academic credit banks which will exist, which will be portable, which will be digital, which means if I studied something, one part of a course in, or 1 year of a course in one particular institution or even country, I am still, I don't lose out on those points. I don't waste that time and that year and that learning experience. And that can be carried forward with me as an experience in the form of the credits that I collect and accumulate, and it will be counted for in the next course that I apply for, obviously, depending on the logistics over there. So the second goal of this policy is to have more universalization of our education system. Then something that we've been talking about for a while, specifically when you talk about the problems in our education system, where everyone says too much of rote learning, rectification happening, where you need to mug up and mug up and mug up. So here in this policy, we are wanting to reduce the emphasis on rote learning, and they want to encourage a focus on activity-based learning, actual experiential learning, because that's something that stays with you and that enriches the learning experience that one has during the entire educational journey that one goes through. And something which I was very, very happy to read about, which is that the rationale again behind this policy is to reduce academic pressure, to reduce the workload of the curriculum, such a huge syllabus to cover in this much amount of time. So to try and reduce that load, and also to reduce the need for a coaching culture, which means across the years I've seen people going in for tuitions and going in for coaching classes. So you're studying something different at your coaching and something different at your school and colleges. Lots of pressure, lots of workload, lots of things that the mind is dealing with. So these are some of the overall goals of the National Education Policy. A little snippet from a newspaper article when this policy was released, just to get a glimpse of the changes that have been introduced. Again, like I said, I'm not going to get into the entire policy um, today. So, just to understand, for schools, the structure has changed, the flexibility in choosing our subjects and streams has increased. The board exams are now going to be possibly offered twice a year. There's going to be again more modulation in the board exams, which might be diluted, so to reduce pressure, to not make it such a big hyped exam. There's going to be maybe a multilingual approach. There will be bagless days where you see students carrying school bags that are maybe heavier than their entire body weight. So we're trying to introduce maybe 10 bagless days in a year, which might be at the same time they might be exposed to some kind of an informal internship even during schooling years. And in terms of higher education, in terms of college, there's going to be, first of all, a national testing agency which will conduct a common entrance, which will be conducted twice a year. So that will be like your competitive exams or STAT. Then the bachelor program is going to be a 4-year course, a 4-year program which will be preferred, but there will be credit given throughout um, those. Each year you can exit, and entry points will be flexible over there. Affiliations will trying to be standardized across universities. This is again a long-term goal over the next 10-15 years, wherein maybe the deemed university statuses and all your graded autonomies to degrees will be changed. There'll be a fee cap that is being proposed, and of course, the aim in all of this, like we said, increased universalization. We are trying to go global, and that globalization of our education system is something that's going to be encouraged. So, a glimpse of what the school education program used to look like, which was our traditional 10 plus 2. And now, if you see, it's actually 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So, which basically means foundational and then preparatory and middle and secondary. But we are interested more in what the impact is going to be on higher education. So, higher education is going to start with, like I said, the first undergraduation is going to be a 4-year undergraduation. But as you can see in the diagram, you have an option to exit. If you exit in 1 year, you can get a diploma or a certificate degree. If you exit by the second year, you can get an advanced diploma. By a third year, you can get a simple undergraduate degree. And by a fourth year, you can get that undergraduate degree with research. And again, this is going to be slightly varying per subject. And we'll come to specifically in psychology, what is it that it's going to impact us. And overall, if we look at higher education, the overall approach is going to be more holistic. It's going to be more multidisciplinary. They are planning to adjust the structures of the degree programs. They're going to adjust the lengths of these degree programs. And they're going to offer lots of flexibility, specifically in master's programs and in their design. So, for example, there's going to be a 2-year program which is going to be introduced, where the second year will be devoted entirely to research for those people who till 2023 already completed a traditional 3 years bachelor program, right? So we have an additional 2-year program where you can do your 3 plus 2 and get a master's degree with research. That's one. Second, there's going to be a 1-year master's program also that's offered for those students who, starting from this year, are going to complete a 4 years bachelor's program with research. So that option is also going to be given. Then there's also going to be the same integrated 5-year bachelor's master's program, BA plus MA, that already exists, that's going to stay unchanged. And when you want to pursue a PhD, that shall require either a master's degree or a 4 years bachelor's degree, which is the bachelor's degree with research. Either of these is what will be your eligibility to undertake a PhD after, of course, clearing whatever eligibility criteria and entrance that you'll have to give for it, which also will be universalized. I think it's the UGC net that you'll have to give. And like I said, there's going to be an academic bank of credit, like I discussed, for having more universalized, digitally stored academic credits across institutions. Okay, Now, coming to the impact this policy is going to have on our education in psychology, we can choose subjects in combination. So, for instance, I remember when I was in school and by the time I was in 11th, I was very, very clear that I wanted to pick psychology as a subject in 11th. And in my school, there was just one particular stream where psychology was there mandatory. And I was not able to choose if I wanted to pick some other subjects and drop out a math and pick a science and also keep psychology. That option wasn't there. Now there's going to be a flexibility. You don't have to be restricted to a particular stream. You can pick and choose the subjects that you want. Like I've already mentioned, there's going to be clear-cut provisions of entry and exit. So if it's a 4-year program, you can enter by 1 year, you can exit by 3 years, and you can again enter by the second year and just do a 1 year. So your entry exit options are going to be increased. There's going to be more holistic experiential learning. It's also going to reduce the focus on just exams and marks and numbers and performance. The professional track, specifically in clinical psychology, has also been modified, and this has been modified by RCI, but it's going to be in alignment by the suggestions and reforms by both UGC and Niti Aayog. So these are all of the changes that the policy has had on our education in psychology. The role of RCI, which is the Rehabilitation Council of India, is something that's going to stay. It's a statutory body for those of us who don't know, and its responsibility is to regulate education and training for rehabilitation and for areas of clinical psychology. So they have committed to revamping some of its programs, and we'll be talking about this a little more in detail. Okay, I'm just going to look if there are any specific questions until now. What is my name? My name is Roshni. I'm a clinical psychologist. Yes, a lot of the questions that you all are asking, we will be coming to the assignment link, like Dr. Parekh mentioned in the beginning. The assignment link will be shared right at the end. And no, the certificate is not going to be dependent on whether you get the assignment right or wrong. You just have to complete the assignment and fill in the attendance link that's in the description and the comments. All right, okay. Moving further, and a lot of the questions are going to get answered. If anything is left behind, you can ask me again towards the end. All right. Okay. Now in India, we're looking now again specifically for the upcoming academic session of 2024-25 and what the impact is going to be. Our entire education of psychology or any subject for that matter, but specifically psychology, is your schooling and there's your undergrad options, your postgrad options. You could think of a doctorate, a postdoc, some extra certifications and specializations and internships. Nothing in this is that all of this has to be done mandatorily. All of these are options and avenues for you to study any subject. And for psychology, I would say internships become the most important of any subject, because unless you're in the field, you actually don't get a taste beyond the textbooks. Our aim is to get into experiential learning and not just rote learning. Now, when we're talking about learning psychology, there are 3 aspects we need to keep in mind. This is not just, like I said, not just textbook, not just theoretical knowledge, there's also practical training. Then you also look at, are you wanting to specialize in a particular subspecialty of psychology, or applying psychology in a particular field or a particular setting? So those are 3 aspects keeping in mind when we are talking about education in psychology. And I don't think any one is complete in itself without the other 2. So those are those 3 facets that govern our learning of psychology, if not education. Now coming to the actual policy and what it says for undergraduation options in psychology, right? All undergraduation courses from now on, and even same for post-graduation courses, are going to have a CUET as an entrance, a common university entrance test. For this year, what has been decided and uploaded on their site is that it's going to be a hybrid mode of an examination. which I think has already happened for this year. Um, there'll be around 40 out of 50 questions that were needed to be answered in the domain subjects and 50 out of 60 in general tests. 6 papers, 3 hours, 15 minutes to 3 hours, 45 minutes, depending on which stream you end up choosing. If you're choosing psychology, these are some of the subjects. And of course, there'll be language and general knowledge also, which will be tested because it's a common university entrance test. You can always go to the UGC site and read more about this. Specifically in psychology, as of now, across universities, across cities in India, the kind of undergraduate courses that are offered. One is a 1 year course. You have an option, which in some universities might be called a certificate in psychology, or it could be called a diploma in psychology. Usually they're sticking to certificate if they're following the policy, right? And this could be in psychology, or it could be even in applied psychology. If you continue the same course for 2 years, it would be called a diploma or an advanced diploma if the first year was called a diploma, again, either in psychology or applied psychology. Okay. The 3 year bachelor's program that has been going on for all of these years in psychology or in applied psychology is still present in some universities, but it's likely to be discontinued in the future once the NEP is actually implemented across universities. The new bachelor's program that has been introduced is a bachelor's honors, which is your 3 years plus one, which makes it a 4 year program. So a BA honors in either psychology or applied psychology, which is with research. So that's what makes your undergrad now a 4 year course. A brand new course that has recently been introduced by RCI specifically, which was introduced this month, in last month now, in June this year, which is the BSc Honors in Clinical Psychology, which is by the RCI, which is a 4 year program. I'll come to the details of this also. And here you can end up getting an RCI license because it's a course which is being offered by the RCI. And of course, your integrated BA plus MA still continues as is. So if you look, you have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and 4 year, and even a 5 year integrated undergrad postgrad option that exists as of now. Maybe in the near future, the 3 year program might be completely discontinued. All right. Now, the first new course, like you can see, this was the notification. I've just put a snippet of the beginning of it. This was on 14th June that the RCI introduced a BSc in clinical psych, a BSc honors in clinical psychology. All right. What they said, why they introduced such a course, the rationale that they had in mind was one, they found, like we already looked at facts and figures, that there's a huge shortage of human resources in the field of mental health in India. We've already seen that shortage. There is a huge demand for skill training that they identified, specifically at the undergraduate level, which is why they thought of introducing a newer professional degree at an undergraduate level for clinical psychology. Their aim is to try and fill this service gap that exists, which means the number of people who actually require help by a psychologist and the actual psychologists that are trained and exist at a given point of time. We just saw it was 0.07 psychologists available for 100,000 people of the population. So to try and fill in this gap is something why they have introduced an undergraduate professional program in psychology, where they're wanting to enrich education and training, and they're also hoping for maybe lesser attrition. Right? What does this course look like? Like I said, it's a 4 year program, right? It's a program which is offered by the RCI, but it's going to be in alignment with the NEP and the UGC policies. Now, the aim is that they want to prepare trained professionals to provide mental health counseling services in rural and urban communities. So, to increase the outreach is the actual aim, to try and fill in that gap between demand and supply, right? the person who graduates, the student who graduates from this 4-year BSc honors in clinical psychology will be registered with the RCI, will get their CRR number, and the designation that they'll be given according to this policy would be a counseling psychologist, mental health, right? And these students will be eligible, of course, if they meet the criteria to pursue further masters or PsyD programs as a full-fledged either clinical or a rehabilitation psychologist. So this is a new course which has been introduced by the RCI, BSc Honors in Clinical Psychology, a 4-year program. CRR is the license that's given for accreditation by the RCI. Now, this designation, these professionals will be the counseling psychologists with an RCI license. As per the policy, some of the roles and responsibilities that they would be having. One is that they would be providing basic, straightforward assessments for individuals, for couples, for families, and for groups. They would be trained to do the first level of these assessments. Second, they will also be trained and responsible to provide evidence-based counseling techniques to resolve psychological issues. The aim is to help move towards greater psychological health and well-being. So where all could they work? What is the scope of their employment? Again, as per the policy, what is listed is this entire list of institutes where you have mental health institutes, you have government medical colleges, you have primary health centers, community outreach services, you have district and state level mental health programs, you have district and state level rehabilitation centers, you have special education centers, early intervention centers. All of these areas is where an individual who's completed a 4 years BSc honors in clinical psychology, a new program with an RCI license, will work as a counseling psychologist with the training to do assessments and provide counseling techniques in all of these specific areas. What are they expected to know? So when they need to have the knowledge and skills after these 4 years to have basic idea of counseling theories, how to apply them in different kinds of population. Again, the test, the basic level test that they'll be doing would be the self-administered scales, straightforward psychological tests and inventories. So the paper pencil tests, the ones which can also be mechanized, which I think these days you find a lot of these scales online, even if they're not copyrighted. So all of these scales will actually now be able to be done by a trained professional who's having an RCI license after completing a 4-year professional undergraduation in clinical psychology. They would have that adequate skills to get registered as this professional, right? And they'll also have to be aware of the ethics, the professional standards, and all of the acts specifically for the Divyangjan population. Something that I'll quote from the policy, that these counseling psychologists, the rationale that their training is to help them function as a first level contact in both rural and urban community settings. They will be guiding the individual members and the family members with mental health issues towards first appropriate professional service agencies. They'll also be there to provide backup counseling and any further input, besides actually being able to do level 1 of assessments and initial first level contact of counseling. The program details for this new course by RCI, specifically this particular undergraduation, what's mentioned is that the entry requirement is a 12th class with science stream or equivalent. It will be a full-time course with hands-on supervision, because now this is different from your typical undergraduation programs where actual professional training and hands-on skills supervision will be provided. It will be 200 credit points, 50 points per year. And the maximum students they want to take per course, the batch would be of 30 students, so that they have enough staff to be able to, and enough supervisors to actually have direct supervision and skills training. This is a glimpse of what the tentative, like it's mentioned over here, this is the provisional structure of the 4-year program. As you can see, you have clinical placements throughout those 4 years. the course tentatively is planning to be started this year in August. That's what this program is. And again, as you can see in the small print, that the responsibility is of with the RCI, and this program cannot be offered by any other institution because it is a professional program that they're planning. This is not the only undergraduation option that you have in psychology, right? All of those other options where you have a 1 year option, you have a 2 year option, for some years you still are going to have a 3 year option, and you still have your 4 year option of doing psychology with research if you don't want to get into an RCI license or a professional license in clinical psychology specifically, right? So that was the new course that they'd come up with specifically in undergraduation. Otherwise, undergraduation, the integrated course remains the same, and the 3 year undergraduation gets extended by 1 year by having a dedicated year for research, and that becomes a 4 year undergraduation program, right? Now let's look at the post graduation options that we have. Again, like I said, for post graduation also, they have a CUET, a common entrance test. This one will be computer based. It will be a 1 hour 45 minutes exam, and this year it is planned to be for 75 questions in MCQ format and no general paper. They're only going to ask you questions from psychology and some of these subjects that are mentioned over here. Again, you can read more about this from the UGC website. Now, in the post-graduation courses, they have changed some nomenclature. Lots of discussion about this. What should the course be renamed as? But like Sir mentioned in the beginning, it's just nomenclature. It's just a name. How does it matter? It's the content that matters. It's the skills that matter, right? But if you're trying to understand what are the changes that the policy has introduced specifically for psychology, so this is what the RCI annexure this year, which was released, said, and I've only pointed out the courses of psychology, even though RCI offers a list of around 26 courses, I think. So we have your PG diploma in clinical psychology, you have a master's in clinical psychology, you still have a PsyD program, you have a PG diploma in rehabilitation psychology, and you have a master's in rehabilitation psychology. So your MPhil has been replaced by an MA as a name because MPhil is something as a course which has been removed. So, like we discussed, the undergrad options that we have, the postgrad options, again, you have a 1 year option where you could do a PG diploma in either psychology or applied psychology. You have another specific course by the RCI, which is again a 1 year program. That is an advanced diploma in child guidance and counseling. And you have another specific 1 year program, which is a PG diploma in clinical psychology and rehabilitation psychology. So both these RCI programs means it's a professional program, means you get a license. But you also have a PG diploma 1 year without RCI, which is again a 1 year post graduation degree for you to complete within a year, right? Then you have the continued similar 2 years master's program that might continue for some years at least. You have a specific now the MPhil program, which was continuing for these 2 years by RCI, is only going to be there for the next 2 years till the 2025 to 26 session that has been planned as of date. And instead, they've also introduced now an MA clinical psychology or an MA rehabilitation program, which is a 2 year program, which has been offered by the RCI. And we get to the details of this also. And of course, then there's a PsyD program, which is now a 4 year program, which is also offered by the RCI. Okay? So you have 1 year options, 2 year options, and then a 4 year option for a post graduation in psychology or any such specialty of psychology. If you look at their the syllabus that RCI has released, you can't read on this page, but if you just look at the coloring, and I'll try and zoom in the next 3 slides. So if you complete the first part of your professional journey by RCI, you would be given the blue degree, which is your PG Diploma in Clinical Psychology. If you extend it till the second part of the professional journey with RCI, you'll be given an Master's in Clinical Psychology, an MPsy. And if you continue until the last 2 years, the 4 year course, that would be then a PsyD, which is the red degree, the PsyD in Clinical Psychology, right? So if you haven't seen, this is the entire 97 pager document that gives the guidelines and the syllabus for the professional journey of pursuing clinical psychology by RCI, wherein you would get an license as a professional. You would also get this license if you do a 4 years BSc honors in clinical psychology. So I'm not going to get into the detailed syllabus for each of these, but let's quickly go through an overview of what RCI suggested for now these three changed nomenclature courses. First one is PG Diploma Clinical Psychology. Like it was earlier, this is a 1 year program, 60 credits that you get. The trainees that are enrolled, if they've completed their postgraduate diploma, they can also further apply for a master's in psychology after completing this course with a 65% aggregate. Here, the designation that they would get would be a clinical psychologist, an associate clinical psychologist, after they complete a 1 year postgraduate diploma in clinical psychology. And they would be registered with the RCI, they'll get their CRR number, and they can function in a lot of settings, which we'll come to right now, just not in the teaching profession. But they will be a clinical professional where their roles and responsibilities, they would be able to do assessments of various clinical ratings and psychiatric symptoms. And they'll also be doing psychotherapy for individuals, groups, or families. What they won't be able to do with a 1 year post graduation, they won't be able to offer therapeutic interventions for special populations where there's other comorbid medical conditions also. They will not be trained in neuropsychological evaluation or neurorehabilitation. They won't be adept to undertake funded or non-funded clinical research independently. They could do that in collaboration with another professional, right? And they would not be considered for faculty positions in academic settings after completing a 1 year postgraduate diploma. Okay. Where all can they be employed as a professional? They can be employed at hospitals, clinics, within the community. They can also be working as an underfill with clinical psychologists in various state and government sectors. And they could also be working with as a clinical assistant or a teaching assistant or a junior consultant in a larger team, right? If I again quote from what the policy says, so these associate clinical psychologists, their roles and responsibilities are limited to clinical services, but they cannot have independent academic responsibilities, teaching or training or supervision. So academic departments, they cannot function independently. And they cannot independently issue certification for medical legal purposes, for whether it's a learning difficulty or ADHD or any other exemption. And the competence level as per RCI for this particular course has been defined as basic and capable. All right. The second professional post-graduation program offered by the RCI is Masters in Clinical Psychology. Some people are calling it M Clinical Psychology. Some people are calling it MA Clinical Psychology. It's just a letter. It's just a name. Understand what the course has, right? It's a 2 year course. Okay, 120 credits. If you complete your master's, if you get a 65% aggregate completing this course, you're eligible to apply for a PsyD to complete. All right. The designation that you get after completing a master's in clinical psychology is now going to be that of a clinical psychologist. They would be registered by the RCI, and they would be registered with the CRR number. They can function independently as a trained professional in the field, right? The roles and responsibilities of a clinical psychologist, like what we had for a postgraduate diploma, they can also do assessments, but they can also do assessments of neuropsychological function. Second, they can do treatment planning theoretically also and offer psychotherapy for individuals, for groups, for families, for special populations, even populations which have other comorbid medical conditions. They can also offer neuro rehabilitation, right? They can do clinical research funded and non-funded independently. And they're also eligible to serve as faculty positions in academic institutes and colleges and universities. They can be employed as a professional expert also. They can also be employed as a faculty member. They can be employed at institutes of mental health, in medical colleges, in hospitals, community health centers, neurorehabilitation centers, family courts, and family supports counseling services. They can do private practice. They can also work at allied clinics and services. The competence level, again, as per RCI, has been defined as accomplished and expert. All right. The third postgraduate professional degree offered now by the RCI is a PsyD in clinical psychology, which is now a 4-year program, okay, which has 180 credits and it has 2 non-credit courses also. If you've enrolled in the PsyD, you can exit earlier also. You don't have to commit to a 4-year program. If you need to change or get transferred after 1 year, you can exit with a postgraduate diploma. You can exit after 2 years with a master's in psychology. So you have that flexibility. And after you've completed if you enrolled in the PsyD, but you completed only year 1 or year 2 as a postgraduate diploma or a master's, you can apply within those 3 academic years to transfer that credit in your academic bank of credits. That's the flexibility that they've offered, because the 4-year course, in case you're not able to complete it, you don't have to drop out and waste the years that you already spent on learning in that particular course. All right. And then the designation here also is that of a clinical psychologist, where you'll be functioning either as a senior consultant or a researcher or a supervisor. And here you can also be a trainer clinical psychologist, which means you can also train and supervise other clinical psychologists. You'll also have your RCI degree. So the entire list of roles and responsibilities, where additionally to a clinical psychologist with a master's in clinical psychology, here you'll also be able to undertake independent research. You'll also be able to guide other students and candidates doing research and PhD and PsyD. You can have professional expertise in specialities, whatever you specialized in your dissertation, in your PsyD. You can be a professional expert in that super subspecialty. You also have the expertise to integrate various disciplines. You also have management and advocacy skills as a result of your 4-year PsyD program, with, of course, legal and ethical competence. Now, here you can be employed both as a consultant clinical psychologist and a faculty in academic institutes and medical colleges and hospitals and schools and colleges and private practice, same as the clinical psychologist. In addition, here you can be professional members in academic organizations. You can be leader managers in human service organizations. You can be a faculty at higher education. You could be a part of a lot of state and government research projects as a PI, as a principal investigator. You can also coordinate clinical psychology programs which are organized by the RCI. And here, the competence level as per RCI has been reported as authoritative. Last text heavy slide. Like I said, it is a technical topic today. I have no option but to quote exactly what the policies are saying. So for people who've already been completing their education in these past few years using the traditional courses before the NEP came, so you have lateral entry admissions within 3 years prior to the admission. You have all of these options where you can still gain entry into the existing programs. If you've completed a 2-year MPhil already, within 3 years prior to the admission, you can be eligible to join this ID a 3-year from the year 3 itself and continue. You just have to give a separate entrance exam. All right. Okay. Lots of text, lots of policies, lots of terms and conditions. So I'm going to take a break and look at questions. Now tell me any clarification for both the undergraduate and the postgraduate options. Again, this is work in progress. These are policies that they're trying to come up with rather than sticking to what has been going on. We need to also welcome and be open to changes. Yes, there will be hiccups. So usually, and as I can see in the comments when you're saying that you're finding a lot of problems, every change we need to adjust to. Let's understand where they're coming from, what their rationale is, and then let's see how it impacts us and what are our options. This is not something that has been implemented, it's starting to be implemented. So let's also look at it with an open mind and see what we can take from it and how we can benefit from it. So yes, MSci is very much still there, but now it is an RCI program. So PsyD and PhD, the difference would be PsyD is clinical plus research. PhD is typically only research. People with 3-year bachelor's can continue. Like I just said, there is a lateral entry that exists. Look at the number of years that you passed out with. And if at all now, there's just more options that have come up. It's not less in any way. So you will have an option of doing either a +2 years with research for an undergrad degree, or you can do a +2 master's degree, or you can also enroll for the professional programs. You have those options. We have an option of doing a 3-year BA honors or do it with research for 4 years. What's the difference? The difference is that the BA honors psychology course, the 3-year course, is only something that will continue for some years. The BSc honors that has been introduced is also a 4 years course. So you do a 4 years BA honors clinical psychology, that is by RCI. You may not have the option of exiting that 4-year course in between and still get an RCI license. You will have to complete it for those 4 years full time. But if you do a BA honors degree in psychology without RCI, that will be for 4 years, but you also have the option of exiting sooner. So that's the difference. One is by RCI, one isn't. One, you don't have the flexibility of leaving, and the second one you do. And third, of course, if you're doing BSc clinical psychology, you're specializing in clinical psychology. If you're doing BA honors, it gives you the option of further specializing in other fields of applied psychology as well, including clinical psychology afterwards. Right? So that's the difference in both those bachelor programs. Okay, lots of comments. What is the research bit? There will be a year that will be dedicated to research, or they might include research in both the 3rd and the 4th year. Like I said, this is a tentative. If you see the program structure, they have included research, but they haven't specified in which years. If you are completing, currently starting MSc, you continue as per whichever course is being offered. Why is RCI not increasing? So we can't question why they're not doing or why they're doing what they're doing. We can only read what reasons and rationale they've given and try and understand it. So I'm not a representative of RCI. I'm a mental health professional. We're trying to understand what is going on in the field of education and psychology. And let's try and make the most of what is being suggested. So as of now, they've written that MPhil is valid till the 2025 batch. But again, that is as present. It obviously could be subject to change. IGNOU degrees are typically not licensed. If you see most of these degrees that have been mentioned, they are encouraging more experiential learning. So they could be discouraging distance learning, specifically in psychology. All right, I think most of the questions now I can't read because they're scrolling so fast. Can we do a master's degree abroad? Yes, that is the whole purpose of universalization of those credit points. because now the number of years of your undergrad, postgrad, your credit points will get added. So they might ask you to do a 1 year training depending on how many credit points you have. Yes, non-psych students will also be applicable for applying for some of the postgraduate courses. There's a lot of flexibility again. Yes, tentatively, the BA Honors Clinical Psychology is supposed to be starting this year in August. Career scope depends on what you want to do, where you want to specialize, where you want to apply. Like I said, those three facets when we are learning psychology: theoretical knowledge, practical knowledge, specialization, and where we are wanting to apply it. When I say scope and all of those questions about salaries, it depends on you. It depends on the amount of work you put in. It depends on the skill sets you develop. And it depends on your own growth journey. Each one of us could have a different journey with the same qualifications, also, right? Opportunities are always going to be there. Like I mentioned, all of the scope of employments, even till date, when you look at any job opportunity, there's always people who are looking for opportunities to work because that is the gap between demand and supply, right? Um, no, there's no problem. Like I said, you can do a 1 year, you can do a 2 years, you can do a 3 years, you can do a 4 years undergrad. Right now, all of those options are there. For organizational psychologists and for all of those other specialities, I will come to. This we are talking right now just about the policy. What made me choose clinical over counseling? I actually didn't have an option. And that's the difference that you people have. You people have the option of choosing. I did not have an option. Like I told you, even in school, all I chose was psychology. And then I just went with whatever opportunities. And I'm glad I chose what I chose, but it wasn't much of an option. So you people are lucky you at least have the option of choosing. Can students continue with 2 years? So yes, as of now, like I was checking the upcoming academic sessions, a lot of universities are still offering it. So it's not going to stop abruptly, I'm guessing. The transition will take some time. So as of now, yes, I think the 2 year program will also continue. You need to do a 2 years master's after doing a 4 year BA, not necessarily. If you want to do just a 1 year PG diploma, that's also an option that exists. You can still drop out with a 3 years bachelor's and then do a 2 years also if you want. That option of different entry points and exit points still remain. RCI certification is valid only in India. So RCI is for professional licenses, but all other non-RCI courses in both undergrad and postgrad, all the credit points that you earn will be valid and accepted universally. That is what the rationale of this policy is. Yes, of course, if you're starting your BA honors and applied in any form of psychology, you can pursue a professional track in clinical psychology. All right, let me quickly move to the last part of the presentation and then we'll continue with more of the questions. Yes, the more the options can also become confusing, but at least there are options that exist. So think, read, which is why we're having a conversation about this policy. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more such conversations that continue. All right. So just to end, and like we said, there is not just clinical psychology and not just honors and applied. There are a lot of other specialized training that you could take. Now, the specialized training you could take with a lot of different treatment approaches. So many therapies, and this list I could actually go on and on, right? You could have a specialized training in CBT, in DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. You could have a specialized training in acceptance and commitment based therapy, psychoanalytical therapy, solution focused therapy, expressive arts based therapies, applied behavior analysis, motivational interviewing, trauma informed therapy. I can go on and on and on in these lists. A lot of these courses are available overseas. A lot of these certificate courses are available in India as well, right? They are specialized training. They may not be full-fledged 1 year, 2 year undergrad, postgrad programs, but you have specialized training. So you can again choose, because we have so many options. You can mix and match and choose which is the specialized treatment approach, if at all, that you want to specialize in. Right? You could also have specialized trainings in special populations. So children and adolescents could be a population. Just children could be a population. You could be working just in school settings. You could be working with couples and marriages. You could be working with families. You could be working with the geriatric and the elderly population. You could be working specifically for individuals with special needs. And again, you could choose a specific target population and get specialized training in that. These are some of the most common populations that I was able to find for. And again, you could apply the knowledge of psychology in various fields, right? In the field of health psychology, in the field of industrial and organizational psychology, in the field of forensic psychology, psycho-oncology, in cancer care, in sports psychology. You have again certificate programs, you have degrees, you have cyber psychology in the digital world that we have today and the impact that it has on us. We have school psychology. And again, this list can also go on and on, right? So I wanted to mention, I can't get into each of these because a lot of these are not universally accredited. Today, we wanted to talk more about the recent changes. These are newer specializations that have started coming over the past decade or so, and they are continuing to come in. There are specific certifications you could get and specialized trainings in these fields. And yes, depending on what the skills training is, could certify you as an expert in some of these fields of working, in some of these treatment approaches of working, in some of these populations to work with, which may not be an RCI license, but is also a certification to work depending on the authenticity of the course, of the organization providing the course, and the skill sets that are being imparted. And all of these should be hands on. Typically, in psychology, if you have only online courses, it's not enough to be called a course or a certificate. It has to be some hands-on skills training, right? Also to remember, I don't know why the last slide came. So those were two videos that were supposed to be there, which is basically saying there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of implementation that still needs to happen. This is still somewhere in between planning and moving towards implementation. Like any other government policy, it would take time to get translated into action. There are a lot of updates that are still coming in. There's still a lot of discussion still happening. All right. So this was just a glimpse to understand what the policies are saying and how it could possibly impact us. So that was for the education policy. And I'm going to now remove the slide as we look at all your questions. Right. Yes, now please go slow with questions and I will try and read and answer as many of them as I can. Scope for any other specialized field, whether it's industrial or organizational psychology, all of these specializations, you have a lot of scope. Like I said, it's not just the clinical field. In organizations, in various fields, psychology is something that can be applied. You'll always have scope in future. I can't tell you names of colleges because that depends on the RCI degree. You can just do a search on the RCI website and you'll get the most recent updated list. There's no best degree. This is to look at the options that we have. If you complete a 3 year degree or you complete a 2 year undergrad degree, there's no best degree that I can tell you to offer. Otherwise, we'll just say the longest degree is the best. I don't think that's how it works. The best degree is the one that is a best fit for you in terms of what is your goal, what is it that you want to specialize in, the amount of time, energy you want to invest, and the skill set that you're looking for, and what you can afford to invest in terms of committing to that particular time as a full time course. No, you cannot pursue PsyD directly after a 4 years bachelor's. You can pursue it after you've completed at least a postgraduate diploma. So if you are in the 24-25 academic year, it depends on the university that you are in, what course they are offering, have they implemented the policy, and what options and entry exit points have they started introducing already. Like I said, it's going to be maybe phased out in transition. Yes, you can become a clinical psychologist after doing arts. I think right now only for the BSc 4 year honors program that they mentioned a science stream, but even there they've written or equivalent. Let's see. I'm sure they'll come up with more opportunities and not just restricted to science students. No, that's what the whole point is. MPhil is now not compulsory for, so nothing is compulsory anymore. You have an option of doing a 1 year undergraduate to a 4 year undergraduate. You have an option of doing a 1 year postgraduate going up to even a 4 year PsyD, right? For getting an RCI license, you can do a 4 years undergraduate BSc clinical psychology honors. You can even do a 1 year postgraduate diploma and still get an RCI license. So there's no compulsory. In fact, the only thing that this policy is trying to do is create more flexibility and create more opportunities for us. If you do a if you do a BSc honors clinical psychology by the RCI, it's going to give you the designation not of a clinical psychologist, of a counseling psychologist, but with an RCI license, so that you become the first level contact in rural communities specifically, where you can serve to bridge that gap, that demand and supply gap that we talked about. After completing your 4 years, or how do you become a clinical psychologist? If it's a clinical psychologist by RCI, you have to complete your 2 years master's in clinical psychology by RCI. That's it. If you want to become an associate clinical psychologist, you could even do the 1 year PG diploma. If you want to become a clinical psychologist trainee and supervisor, you can do the 4 years ID by RCI. No, the session is not over. This was just part one of the session. There's also going to be the second part where we're going to talk about ethics with Dr. Parekh. No, if you want to do a PG diploma in child guidance after your BA honors, you can directly do the 1 year PG diploma. You don't need to do your 2 years masters. No, for PsyD, it could be 4+4, not 4+2+4. PGD's Child Guidance Counseling PGDC, that's a tongue twister diploma, is still existing by RCI as a 1 year course as of now. No change in that. Like I said, to become a clinical psychologist with a 3 year bachelor's, you could still apply for the 2 years master's program. I think for the next 3 years, that option is still definitely going to be there. Even afterwards, you could just cover up the 1 year gap that you have for an undergraduate with research and still apply for the master's. That opportunity is not going to be deprived for you. The role of credits is to increase universality. So, which means if I dropped out in between, I can continue carrying over my credit points because they're going to be digitally stored. I can change universities, I can change cities, I can even change countries. And if my credit points get carried over, I don't lose out on the time and learning that I've already spent. I don't have to repeat it. That is the purpose of credit points. I think most of the questions are now answered. And you switch between courses right now is something you need to also look at what your universities are offering. Like I said, it's in transition. Questions are running up. One second. Yes, PG diploma in rehabilitation psychology still exists as a one-year program. Again, if it's PsyD versus PhD, which is more beneficial, depends on you. It depends on what you want to specialize in. PsyD will be focusing on both clinical expertise and research. PhD is primarily research. RCI is only for clinical and counseling professionals, so and for rehabilitation and special education and allied courses. RCI does not provide licenses for all other specialities of psychology. So that's why these licenses are only for counseling and clinical that we talked about today. But it does offer licenses in special education and rehabilitation. I think there are around 26 courses that RCI gives the license for. Physical internships at Fortis, like Dr. Parekh said, is something that we're not offering as of now, which is why this is an online option that we started instead. Okay, I think all questions are answered. Let's see if Dr. Parekh is here to start the second part of our conversation today, which is on ethics. Sir, I think you're on mute.
Okay, hello. Once again, we'll talk about ethics. Feel free if you have some things on your mind, or Roshi can start, whichever you prefer.
I think questions are still continuing for the policy, but yes, ethics. So, just first thoughts, the importance of having a conversation about ethics specifically for today's students.
No, I think why today's? I mean, we studied ethics and tried to understand it way back. I mean, I was a student of psychiatry about 30 odd years back now. So you cannot have any branch where you don't have an understanding of ethics, and you can't do well and you can't serve your branch well. Ethics have to be given meaning because it is these ethics which are going to bring um, the kind of respect, recognition, and also ensure that professionals stay within a boundary in an undiluted manner. We call ourselves mental health practitioners or mental health professional, medical professionals. So, professionals need to have a professional code of conduct, understand that what fits in with their profession. I don't think ethics is a new thing. I don't want to say that it's a bigger concern now than it was earlier. I don't think that will be fair. I mean, we've studied ethics. We've tried to understand ethics as students. I continue to believe that having a strong sense of ethics is only going to help you, all of us, become better clinicians and do a better job.
Right. So, but do you think that its relevance has changed now when you have social media and we're talking of confidentiality and privacy? Do you think it's become easier or tougher to maintain that?
See, I mean, it's like mixing two aspects. There are challenges that happen with every new thing that happens. So if you go way back, Freudian era, then the concern was, let's say, around when you meet a patient in a social setting, then what? From there, today you are talking about um, if you put a certain kind of post in the public domain and you are also a mental health professional, then what do we look at that? I think uh, it's very important to understand this. I don't think social media per se is the issue. It is usage of the social media that needs to be seen, and that will apply to any other aspect of our life. So you are a mental health. I mean, I'm a psychiatrist. You are a clinical psychologist. I can't take that fact away. In my personal domain, is a separate issue. But the moment I get onto the public domain, I can't take the ethics and responsibility of being a psychiatrist outside the scenario and end up saying things which are, let's say, not scientific, factually not correct. I'm sharing empirical, um, judgmental, or let's say without evidence. I mean, I can't be doing that because that harms the branch. The more there is clear, honest information available, the more psychoeducated the world would be in the right manner. It's good for people.
And
I mean,
so,
feel since you were mentioning social, you may feel at times, and I was saying this a few days back in a lecture in Ahmedabad that. See, you will feel the pressure of conformity in your own way. You will have a whole kind of you'll have influencers on social where they can see things or they are saying things. You may feel that okay, this particular thing is being noticed more by people, and you may want to um, do that as well. But you will still need to stay within the domains of ethics of your branch. That can't be compromised. And that's something we need to understand. You are a mental health professional, and you first be a mental health professional, then communicate what you want to communicate in the best possible way that you can. But you can't take the context of your being a mental health professional out of it. That's not how it works.
so if a mental health professional stays that professional across social worlds, real worlds, professional and non-professional worlds also, I think. Uh, so my personal ethics would be different from my professional ethics in practice then?
My teacher told me that if there is only one self and you don't have different versions of portrait self, ethics will come easy to you. But if you are going to have several versions and you will probably forget which one was where and how, ethics are ethics. But what I said here in the context was that in a personal domain, you may, with friends or very close family, be more you. But if you are, let's say, in the public domain and you are speaking as a mental health professional, then you will have to respect the branch that you represent. And you can't not accept that fact.
Someone has asked an interesting question. Your opinion on the role of ethics in AI, especially when we hear cases like voice copying and imitating people via videos.
Now, see, how I see it is AI is also being used by a human, right? So a human who's crossing the ethics by using the innovation of AI to, let's say, create a deep fake or something or the other, the problem is still with the human. I mean, you have a technology which can be used for the betterment, and you are now using the same technology which is causing more distress. I mean, what's the logic? It still comes down to you.
Right. And how would you talk about boundary setting and its importance in
See,
practice?
start from, let's say, the Freudian school of thought. move forward to, let's say, CBT, talk about DBT, you talk about wherever you want to talk about, whatever you want to talk about. How can you not have boundaries? If you start crossing boundaries, you cross the line of science. The moment you cross the line of science, it becomes a concern. Why? Because it will not only become ineffective or let's say reduce its efficacy, it may also do damage. So the whole purpose of doing something good and right, you that's not how it should be.
And when you are texting and the words that you use and the language that you use, both verbal and non-verbal, do you think ethics play a role there as well? The choice of words, the choice of language.
It's the way you look at it. How I see it is that for me, using mental health as a slur, or let's say using explanations which don't have a science behind it or evidence behind it, sharing your own personal views about it, and based on your own understanding of some data points that our life has given us in terms of our experience, and then extrapolating that and putting it to something else. No, language is how we interact, language is how we talk. So it's not that, ethics, it's not in or out. Ethics is everything. It will include from your the choice of words, your behavior, your boundaries, your verbal, non-verbal, your approach, your social aspect. There are so many aspects, and all of that would be ethics.
And is asking your take on online therapy sessions. Is it as ethical and effective as in-person sessions?
I think let's be very clear about it. Online therapy or telemedicine, telemental health is probably one of the most important aspects which has happened post COVID. Please understand this. If nothing else, take a mathematical route to it. What percentage, what number of experts do we have in a country like us? The percentage of experts which are disproportionately present a lot more in urban metros and so on and so forth, vis-a-vis tier 3, tier 4. So what happens is, what will you do with all this awareness if there is no access? In fact, I believe Telemanas, the government's initiative of giving full mental health from therapy, counseling to medications is very, very unique and very, very, very effective and useful. And I think all of us need to understand that. So, to say that telemental health is not as effective as mental health as in physical sessions, I think that will now be an outstretch. I don't subscribe to that. I do feel that there will always be some times when you would want to see someone physical because of some clinical factors. But in general, to compare and say, okay, all physical is better than all online, I don't think that that's true anymore. And it's just that how you do it. We've talked about it. How do you do mental health? Some of those aspects need to be seen. So, for example, you can't be doing it when you're driving. You can't be doing it while you take a walk. You need to do it as structured and with the boundaries of how you would have done any intervention in a therapeutic space, whether it is physical or online. You will have to maintain that. There's no other way to look at it.
Someone is asking, so according to you, ethics is inborn or learned?
I think most things are learned. I'm not a very big believer of things that everything is inborn. And yes, nature has its play, but I think nurture plays a big part, and observational learning plays a huge part. At the same time, super ego is also there. So but largely we can learn ethics, and if we work hard, we can implement that in our life without any doubt.
How do you maintain a personal life while being a psychologist? Does it become difficult considering there's an image to maintain?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I have my own space. How I deal with my own space is within me. But I am who I am. So yeah, I am a mental health professional. So are you. Everybody here is. Um, why allow it to become different than, let's say, a lot of other fields? We all have. I mean, all occupations will come with their own struggles. I mean, we used to use the word occupational hazards way back when I was in college. All of that will have, right? But that does not mean that you look at one branch over the other and think like that. You go through your training, you do what you have to do, you take care of yourself, and be at your job on the top of it every day.
Someone is asking, how do you not think about your clients outside of the clinic, outside of work?
You'll go through the training, to be honest. You'll learn that as well, because you'll also learn the importance of switching off. I can't have a mind which is switched on constantly, right? I mean, whatever working hours you decide for yourself, 6 hours, 8 hours, more or less, but you decide on that because post that you need some unwinding time, you need some upgrading time as well. So I don't see it like that. I think you can very well maintain a I mean, your personal life can be well maintained, and you can have a very healthy work-life balance as a mental health professional.
Someone is also giving the reference of Dear Zindagi and therapy on a beach, and how ethical is that, even if you're following humanitarian ethics?
No, it is not effective. You do not take a psychological or a therapeutic session as a mental health professional on a beach, on a walk, on a in a cafe. Not cool, not acceptable. I don't subscribe to it at all. You are compromising way too many boundaries, both physical and emotional. And when you are crossing those boundaries, you are losing the sense of the science here, and the non-judgmental, unbiased component all start getting colored there. Absolutely not okay. Um, Absolute no to doing sessions in a cafe. Absolute no in doing sessions on a beach while taking a walk. Absolute no.
And when you said being non-judgmental, how does one be non-judgmental?
Aspects to it. I wish everybody was non-judgmental. Uh, I truly believe everybody was non-judgmental. You don't need to be a mental health professional to be non-judgmental. But yes, you go through a training. That also is there. But who are we to judge someone else? We will make mistakes, like it or not. All of us are going to make mistakes, and that's not going to change. I make mistakes. You'll make mistakes. We all will make mistakes. Own up to them. Nobody's perfect, but judgment. It's just narcissism going wrong.
And what would be your take on receiving gifts from patients in practice?
Uh, I would say no. I would say no for gifts. Yeah, I would respect the fact that this individual felt like giving something. I will thank them. I will also recognize that there is a positivity there, but I'll also share that I won't accept them. I think that's the right way to go about it.
Someone is asking, do you relate with the patient when they have a similar life condition as yours?
Honest answer, if I have to give you my own answer, then I don't think the word relate is that scientific, right? Do I identify? Is that identification that I am experiencing having an impact on my approach, my therapeutic approach with the patient? Then it's a problem. That's the way to look at it.
When different patients need different approaches, one needs you to be kinder or tougher. How do you balance this with the treatment that they need?
No, I don't understand. One needs to be kinder. What's the other?
One needs you to be kinder, another needs you to be tougher. how do you balance this with the treatment that so patients with different needs?
See it like that. You are having a treatment approach based on the clinical profile of this individual patient. So you will decide what approach to have based on the clinical profile. You can't decide this is kinder, this is tougher. No, that's not how it works. And the same individual, over a few sessions, you may end up having a slightly different approach. That also very much is possible. So don't put this in compartments.
Right. Someone is also asking, how do you choose which is the right time to terminate or drop a client?
Two aspects there again. Two aspects there again. Uh, One would be that you are looking at where both you and patient or the client you're working with feel that you've reached a place where you want to taper off, wean off, reduce the frequency, see how things work. But you are always there if in between is needed based on improvement, functionality, level of functional recovery from the impairment, understanding of how much resilience and cognitive, behavioral, emotional resilience has been now developed by the individual, that the pattern and the triggers or the stressors and the patterns which were having an impact are now having very little chance of doing that. So that's how you look at it.
How do you say no without hurting the patient's feelings?
You say no for what you have to, because your job is not merely whether you're hurting or not. Your job is to be clinically efficient and ensure that the psychopathology that the individual is happening, you are able to help them out of it. You must understand that aspect as well. And I do
There's a question.
agree. I just read somebody writing breaks, so I think that's a fair point. Roshni's been going on for 90 minutes. We still have a while to go. So how about we just take a pause, all of us, 2 minute pause, and we'll remember where we are and we'll take the questions from there. Give me 2 minutes. All of you take a 2 minute break, and let's be back in 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So Roshan will take a slightly longer break. I'll take your questions till then. Yeah. 1 second. I'm going to try from some questions, and then if I've missed out, you can add again. Huh? Is it okay to comfort a patient while they're having an emotional breakdown? Yes, but you must understand that some of these questions which have a generic approach to it, there can't be a generic answer, which means yes, you can comfort, but comfort doesn't always need to be a hold of a hand or a hug like you mentioned here, right? It would also be your verbal, non-verbal intervention that you are doing. And I do understand that when you are with a child, sometimes you may, but you need to understand that what needs to be very rarely done, you need to be more careful about it. And it is best avoided as far as you can. How to build a good rapport communication. You're able to showing your expertise. You're being non-judgmental. You're being empathetic. And you're instilling hope in this individual. Initially, that's the session. If you want, you can read from Othmer. There are a couple of very good chapters in the book on how to form a rapport. Is it okay for a therapist to talk about a similar situation? Yes, I mean, if you look at the school of thought where storytelling is used as a form of effective intervention. So whether it is a self story or whether it's a story, a fictional, a panchtantra for that matter, or a story which is narrated as an example, yes, but you still maintain 100% confidentiality. You be ethical about it, and you should know when to use what, and say it in a way that you're not creating a comparison, but you're helping more learning. I mean, we're very careful with these things. I appreciate this question that patients come from different parts of a society. How do you prepare yourself? If you are non judgmental, then you will be able to be culturally sensitive as well. In fact, transcultural psychology or is something that we all need to read a lot more about. It's not merely that we live in a diverse society, the world is also diverse. And with telemedicine and so much of movement that humankind is going through. So, what also happens is that you may be exposed not just to people from different languages and cultures, you may be also having from different countries. So, it's very important that you develop a more non judgmental approach. But my one thought on it, something that I have done a lot in my life and it's helped me read a lot to young people, and also besides the academic reading, try and read a lot from cultures globally, stories from fiction to non-fiction and travelogues and biographies. You'll learn to see things from a lot of vantages, and that will also dilute the stereotypical way of looking at things, and it will help you in this cultural component. Is it fine to share your personal experiences? Yes and no again. Yes, based on the clinical profile, and no in terms of a generic way. So you'll have to look at it in that way. Assignment will be given by Roshni towards the end. So when you say how do we make clients open up, I think you also need to understand that there are various levels of resistance, which are a part of the psychosocial pathology and psychosocial experience of an individual. So if an individual who is coming for therapeutic intervention is still having resistance, please see it as a in the clinical context. Don't take the clinical context out. So that resistance may take its own time. You have to deal with the resistance also. If you're absolutely certain that an individual is going to cause harm to someone else, then yes, you can, but you have to be very, very sure about it that you might want to involve someone. when you're looking at any form of inward uh, harming behavior, then I would actually talk to the individual and tell them I want to talk to someone so that they can also be a part of and making sure that for these few days when you are struggling to be able to get you the right kind of support and make sure you do that. I would like to take the route of taking the consent, even if I have to be directive and prescriptive about it. So in crisis intervention, your directive therapy is scientifically and ethically the right thing to do. Therapists being vulnerable in front of their clients. I'm not a very big believer of the way vulnerability is both used, misused, and abused as a context in modern day times. I don't have a problem in the vulnerability of any professional, that could be a mental health professional or any other professional, but to take intervention, direct or indirect, for your own um, as for your own self, you need to choose a different platform. It can't be your patient. So your supervisor, a supervision, a therapist for yourself, but it can't be during a session and the patient. So no, vulnerability to the client, no. Vulnerability is human. Recognize it and take help at the right place, but not in a therapeutic situation. I think that's almost like burdening somebody who's come to you seeking help, and you're burdening that person. So I don't see that. That's the right way to take it. Some psychologists must immediately stop their session when the client is about to open or about to break down. What will the actual action said? No, I think we'll have to also understand this. Um, Sanctity of the boundary also includes time. You can't have a 7 8 hour session. You can't have an unlimited time session. Yes, it may be possible that you may have to extend a little bit at times for a crisis or an emotional disturbance the individual is experiencing, but that does not mean that just because towards the end of the session I said something, that means you give go ahead for another hour. I don't think that it works like that. So if you stopping a session, right kind of summarizing, right kind of direction, fixing the next session are also equally important. So it's not that you just switched it off. You are closing it and doing something for the next one. That's how you understand this. If you're looking at a child who's 3 to 10 years of age and throwing tantrum, you will see that as a part of a behavior that through your treatment you are going to help shape, right? So it's not about how you handle them. You are still going to look at the why, the how, and the gradual shaping. That's how it needs to be done. How helpful it is for a mental health professional to have a mental health professional like any other individual. I mean, if I'm struggling, I should go to someone. Um, I can't just help my own self if I'm struggling. I mean, if I tell people that if you are struggling with something, you go ahead and talk to someone, the same applies here as well. Yes, I agree. I don't think beaches, cafes are all ethical. That's absolute no. I completely agree. How to deal with rude behavior of patients? Again, you will need to understand personality, psychopathology, psychosocial stressors, what is happening. Is it a part of resistance? Is it a part of maladaptive defense mechanisms that a certain emotional or a behavioral pattern is coming? And how do you help them, um, you know, become more adaptive and more mature with defense mechanisms? But yes, you can address it, which is fine. The as far as this is concerned, how do you differentiate between a psychological disorder like social anxiety and stubbornness? Criteria are very clear, right? Tomorrow, Dr. Shambhavi Jaiman and Dr. Trideep Chaudhary, both psychiatrists, are going to talk about diagnosis in psychiatry. They'll talk both DSM and ICD. Diagnosis is diagnosis. The criteria are very clear. So you use the criteria. If it fits in, it's a diagnosis. I'm going to leave some of these questions which are on the academic component, and I will let Joshni come back and take those questions. But assignment will come towards the end after this session is over. You mentioned the film. The film was not. The protagonists were not um, the conventional therapeutic expert. I mean, so that's how you need to look at it. And in any case, I mean, the whole idea of films is that you're looking at fictionalized version more often than not. Introvertism, extrovertism, some of these terms are dated, old school. Your personality does not mean that your efficacy is being compromised. Because when you work with someone, you are looking at the approach which is a school of thought, approach of giving intervention. So your personal attributes don't come there. And when you talk about rude behavior, you will see rude behavior in social. You will see people unnecessarily commenting, giving an opinion, being negative, sometimes being nasty, bringing their own opinion and judgment. Sometimes you will see this. People feed into the narcissistic need by um, criticizing someone and so on and so forth. That's life in these times, unfortunately. Um, I don't think we realize if this was a social side talk, I would have probably discussed that with you. But if I'm a young person, if I go on any social media platform, if there is so much of criticism and negativity, and people are just trying to pull each other down, I think that's a way of life. And how will I get my positive strokes if there is so much negativity that continues to happen? I mean, try doing something good, and you'll still have a couple of people commenting negatively on you, which is, you cannot possibly have 100% ratio in life. How can it ever be possible? Not going to happen. Certainly not in a instant reactive approach of communication that we have in these times. If somebody asks you a solution for a problem that can't be solved, you help them understand that aspect as well. I mean, there will be certain things that's acceptance, locus of control. If there is a locus of control which is external, that does not mean that I'll be able to solve it. So if somebody is saying something to me, I can't change that. I can decide whether it affects me, gives me distress. That's in my control. But that person's behavior is not in my control. And acceptance is a mature defense mechanism. I mean, um, if I end up crying in a session, since I don't want to give a 0 to 100 answer to this, but if there was, then I would have said no, absolute no. But because there are times that I don't know, um, to be able to sometimes say some of these absolute things. But I can put it like this, that it will not be, more often than not, or most times, it will probably not have a therapeutic um, benefit of any kind to the patient, more often than not. And anything that does not have the therapeutic benefit is very, very questionable. And like I mentioned earlier, my distress, I'm not undermining it, but my patient can't be uh, in any which way. My inability to deal with something and it giving me distress, and my expressing it to my patient, is almost a role reversal of sorts. I would be very uncomfortable with it. If you have an individual who are getting emotionally attached or dependent on you, you deal with it. I mean, that's transference, right? You will throughout your career have individuals, patients, clients who will develop transference towards you, also develop counter transference at times. You resolve both of them. Transference largely needs to be used for the betterment. Again, old school, more um, original schools of thoughts for therapy. You use transference as a part of it. Transference will be a part of um, your treatment process. How to deal with personal biases? Yeah, ideally, personal bias should not be there. I mean, I will have personal attributes and thoughts, but then I stop being non-judgmental, right? The moment I have a personal bias, that means I'm bringing my emotion into it. I'm bringing my judgment into it. We were talking earlier about cross-cultural component also. That I won't be a good mental health professional if my biases intervene the therapeutic process, and I might actually end up, rather than helping an individual, um, might end up increasing the psychopathology, and I don't think that's wrong. It's not about stoic and not displaying too many emotions. It's about being empathetic, non-judgmental, boundaries, being open, being affirmative. But that does not mean that you are not in control of your own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. How do you confidently choose a school of thought? It's going to be a learning for you. You'll learn almost all schools of thoughts, and then you'll start imbibing some of them. And most of you will end up practicing more eclectic approach, where you do a bit here and bit there, which will be a lot more to do again with the clinical profile of the individual. The clinical profile of the individual. Please understand the importance of that, which means, let's say, I am using a particular technique with all my patients, right? And let's say another individual comes to me. Now, this patient is not going to benefit with the technique I use based on the evidence, criteria, guidelines. I can't be using this technique on them, right? I should instead refer them to someone else, which is fine. I'm not, I can't possibly have all answers to all problems. It's just not possible. What if a client wants to date you? You say, no, you can't date your clients. That's an absolute, non negotiable, undiluted no. And if you also have feelings for the client, that's not okay. You should have identified the feelings, and you should have, which is countertransference, and you should have taken therapy and intervention so that this is something that can be resolved. More importantly, you should have referred this client to someone else. That would have been the ethically and the scientifically correct thing to do. You'll rarely find something which is clinically effective and not ethical. And you will rarely find something which is not ethical to be clinically effective. Yes, therapy should. Um, a therapist not well, physical or otherwise, if the overall capacity of the individual is maintained, is very much fit to take therapy. And a therapy taking therapy for themselves is also fine. A patient, somebody taking therapy for themselves, that does not mean they can't take therapy for others. These are not rigid structures. I don't you look at these words like vulnerability the way they have been used and continue to be used in social. I don't see it like that. I also don't see things like superpower and power and these things. I don't see life like that. We have strengths and weaknesses. We continue to work with our strengths. We continue to work on our weaknesses. We will make mistakes. We own up to them. We correct them. We rectify them. We use techniques which show evidence. We don't use our own personal judgments and personal opinions when it comes to the therapeutic process. That's the only approach to look at it. I'm very clear about it. You've asked a question around LGBTQI plus community. I'm very clear about this. Being affirmative has to be a part of being a mental health professional. It's not about being affirmative to A, B, or C. You need to be affirmative. You have to be empathetic, not to A, B, or C. You have to be empathetic. You have to be non judgmental. Who is sitting on the other side of the room? That doesn't change my ethics, my being non judgmental, and my ensuring that I do what I'm supposed to do. I have a role and I have to have that role. So be affirmative. And I think let's be very clear about this. Is it worth investing in internship of psychology? My answer to that is anytime you feel that you are learning something, it's worth it. I don't subscribe to internships having a price to it. I think that's the only way I look at it. So, is it worth you attending, spending time with, let's say, um, with me for the past hour and a half, and vice versa, right? Uh, the answer to that question is I'm learning because I'm interacting with all of you, and you are learning because you are interacting with me, and we are both learning. It's worthwhile. That's how I look at it. But if we are not, then no, something else. And no, I don't subscribe to paying for internship. I just it doesn't fit in. I need to scroll up again. Just, so many questions happen. So don't look at client-centered play therapy in a rigid way. So when you talk about not to react, it does not mean that you are being and there is only one way to approach it. So a lot of times we do make this mistake. Sometimes when you're using CBT, that does not mean that you only have to do journaling and only have to do writing and only have to do homework. You will need to look at what fits in. Like I have been saying again and again, don't pick a school of thought and apply it to everyone. Look at the clinical profile of the individual. If you cannot understand and if you're not able to understand what the client is going through, then I would frankly refer the client to someone else. And it's absolutely okay to do this. It's not about what you know or don't know. It's not that you need to feel good or bad about yourself. It's the right scientific, ethical thing to do. That I don't think I know what to do with this individual. I'm going to refer them to someone else, and there's nothing wrong in that. When you are looking at PTSD, then your approach will also be based on the nature of trauma, the nature of impact of the trauma right now, looking at the current psychopathology, current clinical factors, and then taking it forward. In terms of diversity, how does therapy practice vary across Asian countries and West? I see it like that. You may have been, if you are right now sitting in West, and what if you have a client from Asian origin? Or if you're sitting in Asian, how about you have a client from origin from the other side of the globe? Earlier, I was saying that culturally sensitive, non-judgmental, open. Some of these aspects in your basic empathy and being affirmative. If you have these things on track, then you'll be able to manage, irrespective the culture an individual is coming from. There are some hospitals and clinics ask money for internship. Is that also unethical? Uh, Difficult one to answer. My answer to that is things should be transparent, which basically means you should know upfront, like any other. The moment you charge for something, it's also a consumer service. Let's be very clear about that. So, as a consumer, you should know what you are getting. You should know in transparency uh, whether you are okay with the cost and in return what you are getting, and are you comfortable with that. That's the way to look at it. I mean, education institutes also have their own charges, and there will be different institutes having a different charge. We do not have charges for internship. We're very clear about it. I am not here to make a comment on someone else, but transparency is the key. How much you charge doesn't matter. You may do something pro bono or charge. That's not an issue here. But I don't. I mean, as long as it's transparent and open, and you know it well in advance, which is important. I also feel that the right approach to this is that institutes should have associations with medical practitioners and clinicians and hospitals, and integration of the internship aspect with the training program should happen in a way that this bizarreness which is happening right now, that X is charging X and Y is charging Y and Z is charging Z, and you have young people who need a tick in the box at times, who just need a signature and the hours and so on and so forth. It just, I think it needs to be given some structure, and I think educational institutes need to be very clear about it. And I think the onus here is on the educational institutes. Welcome back, Roshi. Took a very long break. It wasn't 2 minutes.
Sorry for the long break. And sir, exactly what you're saying, part of the policy was actually to bridge these tie-ups and actually have opportunities, structured opportunities for clinical postings, for clinical exposure throughout even undergrad and postgrad institutions. So, so I was listening in even during the break, and I also wanted to ask, how do you think we can ensure justice and fairness as a mental health professional as we're practicing? How do we ensure fairness in the services we're providing?
Be transparent. Tell very clearly. Say what do you know. What do you do. Don't use. Don't use interest to mask expertise. Expertise and interests are two different things. Your expertise is what you are qualified to do for. Just because you may have an interest but not taken expertise, a qualification in that, then you shouldn't be using it on your public profiles as though it's something that you know better. You should say what it is. You should do what you can. You should not do what you shouldn't. And it should be transparent, and your charges should be very clear. And you should do only evidence based work. You can't do, give me your problems first and I will fit you to the right kind of therapist. That's rubbish.
And what about fidelity and integrity as a mental health professional? How should that reflect in our practice?
Integrity is integrity. You don't need to be a mental health professional to have integrity. Um, I have maintained this. If you were to ask me, how do you build a successful career, it's not going to be without values. Just because you have an occasional story here and there that you've seen, where you may want to believe that somebody's shortcuts give them a better life. I think that's fantasy gone wrong completely and portrayed in an even completely wrong manner. I don't think that works like that. And aberration is not science, and it's neither statistical relevance to it. Um, if you read 100 stories of success, probably 98, 99 of them will be based on values and hard work, and there is no other substitute to that. There are no shortcuts in life.
And when someone is asking in the context of testing, what is your take on testing assessments and the copyrights and usage and
If
validity of testing?
there's a copyright, then using it is unethical, uh, absolutely not okay to do. And using photocopies of tests is unethical, not just unethical, it's crossing the legal dimension as well. If a test costs, you need to buy it and then use it, and then you can charge what you want to. That's up to you. You decide what you want to charge as long as you're transparent about it. Also, you can use a test which has a validity on the particular population that you are using, which is fine. Testing is not the problem. What test you use could be. So that be very clear about it. And no, you cannot possibly violate copyright issues.
Yes, the assignment will be provided right at the end. I was just looking at questions. And so they're asking about offline internship at Fortis.
We don't have offline internships at Fortis, and I'll tell you why. Being the setup that we are, where we have a lot of telemedicine and also physical OPDs, increasingly we've realized that the comfort of individuals to have an observer sitting who would be here for a very short time. So most people are very uncomfortable having an observation happening. So we realize that students end up sitting outside a lot more. And the other aspect is that in telemental health, when somebody's sitting here, it's you have to inform uh, the person on the other side, and so we've realized that's not it's not fitting in, and I don't think it's worth the time of the of young people to come and do physical internships at our place. We do this online internship. We try and do whatever best we can, um, but it's essentially you have to decide. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't subscribe to um, charges to internships. I don't.
And what is your take on notes, taking notes and record keeping during sessions or after sessions and
You
maintaining
see,
confidentiality? Yeah.
different aspects. Your maintaining notes is a part of what you are supposed to do. There is very clear annexure mentioned in the Mental Health Care Act, the nature of therapeutic notes that are supposed to be maintained. So if your patient slash client is going to ask for some summary or some certificate after a few sessions, it's their right to have it. So you need to maintain it. And confidentiality is on you here, which means how do you store and maintain your notes? That's on you, and you will have to make sure the right ethical standards for that.
So how do you think, when do you think we should refer out a patient where we feel I'm not experienced or I'm not competent? So if you're new in the field, how do you draw that line of taking on a patient versus feeling I'm not competent and I should refer them out to someone else?
No, so you will know. I don't work with certain illnesses or conditions or age groups. I know that I don't. At the same time, if let's say you've come to me and after listening to you, I feel that you may have a neurological problem, I'm just going to refer you to a neurologist. Or let's say you come to me and I feel you don't need meds, I'll tell you to go to a therapist. If you go to a therapist and the therapist feels that this is not something that I work on and I know somebody else who does better work in this, more expertise in this, then you do that. I mean, there is no other way to look at it.
Someone is asking, how would you react if you meet a patient in a social setting?
I would wait for seeing the nature of interaction the patient wants, and I will try and reciprocate with utmost sense of dignity and ethics, but I will not be proactive because maybe this individual may not want to share, and which is okay. So, and that's the right approach. The very correct approach is here you let the patient decide the nature of interaction.
So, what is your thought about discussing cases with supervisors or with peers? Uh, Again, maintaining ethics and also gaining perspective.
This is fine. It's a part of your training and upgradation of sorts. The other aspect also is when you talk about peers, you also need to understand the difference between closed confidentiality and open confidentiality. Closed, which means the group of clinicians working together, you may be sharing certain things because it helps. So, for example, if I am working with someone, if let's say Roshni, for example, is doing therapy with someone, I'm giving medications, then I and Roshni will interact so that I would have more information sometimes that I would need because the psychiatric sessions for medications I know are much shorter as compared to the 1 hour therapeutic intervention that the psychologist is given. At the same time, when it comes to peers and others, you will also need to look at the nature of information you are sharing. Even if you want to share about, let's say, a certain clinical experience you had and you think you want to share it with your peers, that's fine. But you cannot possibly share any demography data which even remotely can directly also suggest that it could be A, B, or C individual. That's not okay.
And what is your approach to cancellation policies and how they should work for clinicians?
My take is what we have been able to follow it here. I will not charge for a cancellation. I am not going to pass a judgment on anyone else here, but I have not provided for a service. I will not charge for it. But if you are transparent and if you have in advance informed an individual that this is my cancellation policy which I am going to implement, and the individual knows, is completely aware, and then you are implementing it, I think that's okay, that's fair, because you were transparent. You informed before starting the sessions, before the therapeutic relationship was formed, and which is fine.
And what about advertising for self and on social media as a professional or putting up testimonials? Uh, how do you
This is a
think?
testimonials is a no. I think testimonials is what I would like to say. Testimonial is a transference being misused by the clinician, irrespective of the domain of expertise. Yeah, I find testimonials very uncomfortable, even by other professionals. I'm not able to see. Um, it's like this. Let's say I'm a clinician. It could be any branch. Somebody came for me for treatment, got fine. If I tell them or ask them that can you put this post or can you make a video, what are the odds of their refusing? So that's me misusing transference. I don't think testimonials is the right thing. Absolutely. And for us as mental health professionals, I think we can't talk about confidentiality and be okay with testimonials, right? These two words can't be put together. Confidentiality and testimonials, they don't go together. So be honest, look in the mirror, you'll have the answers.
And someone is asking if a client confesses to a crime, what should our course of action be? Confidentiality or legal justice? So when do we breach confidentiality and how do we
Guidelines
say?
guidelines are very clear. Harm being caused to self, you need to ensure that harm is prevented. what is the best way to go about it, trying like I would still keep individual informed and then work around it. Harm being done to someone else, you have to be absolutely certain that there is a harm being caused to someone else. Be very, very certain about it. Because if it goes to the medical legal aspect, and if your certainty is questionable, then you've crossed a major, major line, and you may struggle to undo that.
If we get overwhelmed after sessions but still have some sessions left, can we cancel the later sessions of the day due to inefficacy?
Yes, I would. If I'm not feeling up to myself, I would cancel, yes. But then if I also have a cancellation policy, then I would need to have my cancellation and the cancellation policy same both sides. But yes, if you're not up to it on a certain day, it's absolutely fine not doing work on that day. That's absolutely fine.
Someone is asking what should be the dynamic of control in a therapeutic setting?
I can probably give a couple of days of answer on this, but the dynamics of control has to be within boundaries and within the rules that are there, and that's about it. You can't have dynamics of control are ever fluid and ever changing, and it will be depending upon the clinical profile of the patient. Please, I keep repeating the clinical profile of the patient, and you must understand the importance of that.
In response to testimonial, someone is saying that in today's world, a lot of people refer to reviews to find a good fit with the psychologist. So, how do I keep up with the others who endorse?
It won't last. It won't last. I saw that question also. You also mentioned a particular platform. It won't last. Um, I don't think the review bit is going to last. One fine day, it's going to come crumbling down in any case. I can't control what people will say about me. I will not encourage reviews and I will not be a part of them. That's what I can do. Somebody will still end up reviewing, and again, that's up to them. I can't change that, right? But I am not going to do that. So, no. Testimonial is a no. Asking people for reviews is mental health professionals. How do I ask for a review? I mean, how does that even sound okay? I probably will not sleep well if I would have done that.
And what about as a public expert or giving a public opinion? What is it as our responsibility as a mental health professional to keep in mind?
Say what is, there has to be evidence of what you are saying. There has to be clinical relevance of what you are saying and what should be saying. You are representing a branch. Say what is right, uh, clinically right, ethically right. Say that. And you don't need to please anyone by saying something you yourself know is not right. People will question you. People will give their own judgments and opinions on you. If you know what you've said and what you are doing is what you do, that's what it is, right? Right now, also, I mean, I am giving you my opinion with whatever little experience and little I've had over the past years or so. But if this was my teacher with me, I would still be learning and continue to learn, and that won't change. And you may like or not like what I say. You may disapprove and disagree to some of the things I say. That's up to you. That's absolutely fine. You may feel free to criticize. Troll also. Um, I just won't read it or bother about it. That's the only difference. But I should know that what I'm saying, there is evidence and science, and I can back it up with enough. If this was a paper, then with enough review of literature to back up what I'm saying.
And when there are newer interventions and innovations coming up, we have someone is asking about VR, virtual reality, or even AI used for mental health. What is the role of ethics we need to keep in mind there?
Ethics won't change. The modalities of how we function within what we use to help individuals in a scientific clinical way may keep changing and evolving. That's science. Science evolves, right? Ethics don't change. I am all for innovation. I think the last mile connectivity has to be the goal. Access If we don't create access and we just do awareness, that's pointless. And why should I limit myself to something that was said 100 years back? If there is evidence about something new which is helping someone, pharmacogenomics, precision medications, VR, therapy, AI, I will see how it works the best and how it helps which individual in what best manner. I'm not going to deny them. When I was a medical student, a student of psychiatry, neuromodulation was not there. By the time I passed out, my college, we had never read about RTMS. We didn't know what it is, had not even seen a machine. That does not mean that I deny patients an FDA approved and evidence based treatment modality for certain indications just because in my college days, I didn't read about them. That's not how it works. In fact, we have a neuromodulation program, we have an RTMS machine. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to switch it on, also. I don't know how to operate it. I don't. And it's fine. I didn't learn it. And we are a large program. There are some bright, brilliant young people working in the program who know far more than I do. So I tell an individual that based on your clinical condition, RTMS is an option also. I'm going to refer you to that doctor. If they decide they want to do it, go ahead and do it. If they say no, then we continue what we are doing. But I'm not the expert. How can I know everything? Years of experience does not convert into knowing more than others. In fact, my teacher had told me that the junior most typically is most well read. I mean, the exam going student is probably the most well read person sometimes. So that's okay.
Reading a question and sliding, someone has asked, what should one do if the client ghosts the psychologist without any reason? Do we reach out? And I think they mean a dropout. And
There is it does not. It's. I have not read it in a textbook. I have not read it in a research paper. This is all some new age words. It's a neologism from my vantage. But then I'm a fossil, so most things are neologisms for me. But it's not coasting. It's I came to you for treatment. For whatever reason, I don't want to come back, whether it is my resistance to treatment, whether it is because I felt better, or whether I thought it wasn't good enough, or whether I thought you are not a fit for me, whether I go to someone else, it's my right. And it's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it and certainly not feel offended about it. And you don't need to remind me that, hey, I had not come. That's not ethical. That's crossing a boundary. Testimonial is not ethical, neither is reminding someone that you had a session 3 months back, you didn't come, are you still wanting to come? Both are not ethical.
how can we convince a patient to take treatment if they are not ready? Or
You will have that,
there is.
right? I mean, there will be patients who will not have the kind of insight, which is also part of the illness at times. You do what you can do. You give genuine information, be compassionate, a non judgmental, empathetic approach. You do what the best that you can. Like I said, nothing is ever going to be 100%. And you let some time go because it's possible that more awareness, more openness may also happen. There will always be times when you would feel, I wish more could have been done, but that's not in your control always, right?
Another thought coming to my mind when we talk about ethical deliberation, what do you think is the role of gut and instinct as a clinician?
If it does not have evidence and it does not have a statistical probability of significance, it has no meaning. Do what science treat. There is no science to back up gut. If you do a double-blind study on your gut, and if your statistics is has validation, then talk to me about it. But don't come back to me without um, randomized controlled trial, which is also double-blind and has significant statistical correlation.
And any specific ethics to keep in mind for research, since you're talking of experiments and RCTs?
So I would like ethics committee approvals, please. I would also like that don't do copy paste, don't do plagiarism, don't use AI to write it, um, don't take shortcuts. Research will be average if you've taken a shortcut. It may be a tick in the box, but it won't be good enough. And go through it. I mean, nothing happens overnight, and a 2 minute fast food is also not typically made in 2 minutes. If you start from end to end, then it's not made in 2 minutes, and that's as simple as that.
So, towards the end, if we talk about our, as a mental health professional, not just as a practitioner, our responsibility towards the society, uh, uh, where do ethics come in towards us being a mental health advocate and playing a role beyond clinical practice?
Whatever you do, you bring ethics to that. I mean, advocacy also with ethics. Um, when you share information, you need to share information which is non plagiarized. It should be sensitive. You say it in a responsible manner. You give credit where it has to be given. And because you are an expert, don't say things that can't be backed with science.
All ethics should ideally be respected and followed. How many ethics are actually followed in real life settings?
I don't subscribe to that because, um, yes, people cross ethics and people cross boundaries. You follow yours, I'll follow mine. There is no substitute to that. I'm not going to let my ethics be compromised because I saw somebody else taking a shortcut. It's like that you are on a red light and you're calmly waiting and somebody just crosses it, jumps a red light, and you feel, oh, that person will reach for 30 seconds earlier to you. So you also start doing it, then everybody starts doing it, then you will have a jam on the road. Um, Ethics is not a personal discretion. You, rather than learning that that individual did not use ethics, so I may also get away with it. How about the reverse learning? That individual didn't use it, all the more reason for me to maintain mine. Um, is the way you look at it, right? There'll always be a positive way to look at it or a negative way to look at it. You need to just choose your side here.
I think there are questions about academics coming up.
Okay, so young people, I think I should then leave you. What we can do is Roshni will share with you the assignment. Roshni will also take the a few questions which are based on the topic that she was covering. I have. I'll just take a question or two. No, it's not a responsibility to follow up in a way that it crosses a line. Because what if A decided to leave me? I mean, leave the therapeutic work that I was doing and go to some other therapist. So when I call up, I am almost bringing in an element of guilt, shame, and angst. Should not be doing that. I don't subscribe to that. I still would like to go with the old school thought. Yeah. I can remind you before a consult, um, a reminder that tomorrow is this, confirming it because I have to give my appointment to someone else or to you, and you have maintained. Till then, it's fine. Anything after that, no. And only for a pre-booked appointment, not for a non-pre-booked appointment. Which means you can't randomly decide and say, "Okay, it's been a week. I thought we should talk again." That's not how clinicians talk. Clinicians will have very clear guidelines and follow them. You follow your guidelines, you'll do well. But don't allow subjective explanation to cross a line. To cross a line. That's the problem. Okay. So I shall try and see you tomorrow before the next session. Tomorrow, two of my colleagues, the very, very brilliant Dr. Shambhavi Jaiman and the absolutely bright Dr. Tradeep Chaudhary, are going to take you on a long ride of DSM 5TR and ICD 11. That's going to happen tomorrow. And I'll try and meet you for a short time at the start or at the end of the session if I can. Uh, and on that note, so I'll see you tomorrow and I'll leave you in the good hands of Roshni, Sondi Abi, and unmute yourself, young people.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to post the assignment link over here. It's not going to be mailed. It's going to be posted over here. I will, as I speak, I have put it up. It's a Google form. It is just a few MCQ questions which are application based. So it would require you to think, brainstorm, and then answer. It's a little food for thought. That's going to be the format for all the assignments. Um, I will keep posting it until 6 o'clock a couple of times more in case you all miss it. There is no deadline for the assignment towards, um, uh, I mean, actually, you do it within each day because there'll be a daily assignment that you'll be getting. But by 15th of July, which is the end of the internship, you can try and submit all your assignments by then. Uh, like Dr. Parik said, both attendance and 80% attendance and submission of all assignments is mandatory to get your certificate. And yes, I think the sessions will be recorded at least for a day for you to refer to in case you were not able to attend to them right now. So, any further questions regarding the policy? Like I've been saying all this while, it is something, it's a new change. It's something new that they've trying to implement. It will take time to implement. There might be hiccups that will be experienced by students, by the educational institutions, by the policymakers. Let's be open to these changes and let's make the most of what we can do. What are our options? So, anything specific that any further doubts you all want me to clarify about that? Um, Specialized training post your masters in various therapeutic interventions are available. There are lots. I'm not going to name because I don't want to be recommending one over the other. But otherwise, for lesser known therapies or even the more evidence based ones, the best approach first is to look at the institute that came up with it. So if you're looking for CBT, look at Beck's Institute. Look, if you're looking for REBT, look at the Ellis Institute. That's where they start from. But there are a lot of other certification and specialized programs. So you need to look through in terms of who is providing the training, what is the certification, how much of time are they investing, and what is the skill set that you're developing. For IGNOU students, again, very honestly, I don't know about IGNOU, but for any distance learning, if you see in this policy, they have been focusing more on actual direct full-time education with experiential learning is the focus. So they have not mentioned anything about distance learning. I'm sure that option will be there and they will tell us what is the approach of converting those credit points and figuring out our scope. But as of now, in the policy, that's not something that I was able to find information about. Can I complete my 4 years bachelor's, do my master's, and then come back and get my license? So if you want to get the RCI license, you have to do a course by the RCI, which is only available in India. Which course you choose in both undergraduation and post graduation, there are options. But if you want to get a license from RCI, it has to be an RCI course, which is only in India. Neuropsychology is also a course, absolutely. If you want to talk about the RCI courses, anything from the 2-year program that they're offering, the EMS clinical psychology and the PsyD both offer training in neuropsychology. And of course, you have non-RCI courses also where you have master's programs specializing in neuropsychology. You also have certification courses available in India as well as outside. So that's something you can look at. You directly pursue a 2 years MSci after completing a 4 years BSc? Yes, of course you can. And you can always pursue any postgraduate degree after you've completed any undergraduation degree. It's as simple as that. If you're completing your 3 year BA honors right now, can you apply for the MPsych after completing the course? Yes. You'll have to see what university is offering that option. You might need to do one additional year of research, or you might end up having to just do this within the 3 years itself to ensure the transition. You pursue PsyD after a 4 year bachelor's with psychology as a course subject? Yes. And even after that, you can also, if you drop out while pursuing this ID, you can end up dropping out after 1 year and getting your diploma and so on and so forth. So you have exit points also. The PPT won't be shared, but the recording would be available at least for a day. There is no specific deadline for today about the assignment. I am again posting the link over here. It's a Google form. That's the assignment. The deadline to complete all assignments is 15th, which is the end of the internship. 80% attendance. The attendance link was also put in the description for this video, and the assignments is mandatory to get your certificate. Can you get an RCI license after BSc Psychology Honors? If it's the BSc Psychology Honors 4 year program by RCI, yes, you will get the RCI license. Yes, you can become a counseling psychologist with RCI after you complete your BA honors, BSc honors clinical psychology, and you can become a clinical psychologist, not just a counselor, after completing masters in clinical psychology by RCI. See, when you say becoming a counselor, that's about a license, about the designation and the kind of work that you do and the kind of opportunities you get. Again, these are guidelines that are trying to streamline job opportunities, that are trying to standardize opportunities and education. And it's also trying to fill the gap to have more students given the opportunity to get trained at an undergraduate level so that there are more licensed professionals, more trained professionals to be the first level of contact. So that's where all of these changes are being aimed at. So by 2025, if you are finishing your undergraduation, I think that would be the last year that MPhil would be available. But by then, if you complete your master's, you would be getting the license because that is starting from this academic year itself. So this is if whatever they have described right now as the tentative implementation, if that goes through, then yes, you may not need to do the MPhil and you might get a license after completing an MA by RCI. Yes, humanities students can become counseling psychologists. Just if you want to get the BSc clinical psychology honors, we need to get clarity, they will clarify. Right now, they have written an entry of a science stream, but they've also mentioned or any other equivalent stream. So let's see. I'm sure that opportunity will come up for even humanities students. I'm a humanities student. I mean, I don't think that should be a problem. I have posted the assignment, putting it here for the third time. All right, any more questions? I think these are all repetitive. If you're doing the 4-year BA honors with research, you can be a counseling psychologist. You just may not have an RCI license, but you are a counseling psychologist. The score of your assignment is not something that the certificate is dependent on. We want you to think, we want you to brainstorm, we want you to try and apply whatever we have discussed here today. I heard someone asking whether all sessions would be in such a format. No, obviously, it depends on each topic. So, the first part of the topic today was a little heavy on information because it is a policy and it is what it is. There has to be a lot of text and a lot of trying to interpret what the policy is saying. Because the second part of the topic was ethics, it had to be a discussion which would be more engaging versus, again, just reading out the APA principles and the IACP principles of ethical code of conduct, which is why we had this format. So the format would be interactive throughout the 15 days, but again, it depends on each topic. Here's the link. I think the fourth time I'm putting the link. I hope you all are getting it. How do you get a RCI license after pursuing 4 years BA honors psychology course? So if it's a 4 years BA honors psychology course without RCI, which is with research, after which if you want to get an RCI license, you need to do a course by RCI. So you can do a 1-year course diploma, you can do a 2 years master's, or you can do a 4 year cycle. People are asking suggestions for research topics. Research topics have to be topics you research in because you are interested in that topic. You want to know more. You want to specialize in that topic. You want to have a new finding in that research area. So that's something I can't suggest, or no one can suggest research topics to you. It has to be something where you read, you find an existing gap, and that's where you focus your research. There is no limit to number of questions that should be correct. On the last day, that is on 15th of July, both Anuna and me will spend some time discussing all of the assignment questions. But there's no need for them to be 100% right. Um, let's see what y'all if y'all find the assignments food for thought or not. Can I practice as I lost the question while reading it. I'm sorry, I've lost your question. PG diploma in child guidance and counseling, as of now, as per the RCI website, it is still available. Which institutes are still offering it, you can check again on the RCI website. You don't need to cross check your answers. We will have a discussion on all 15 days assignments on the last day. And I practice as a counseling psychologist in India as I hold a 3 year BA Honors Applied Psych and a 1 year MSc Health Psych. Yes, in fact, you have a specialization in health psychology. So you may not get a license, but yes, you can practice as a counseling psychologist. You can also practice as a health psychologist. If you've recently completed 3 years under graduation, how do you pursue 1 year of clinical psychology to be eligible? So, depending, if it's not too many years ago, just check the eligibility criteria during the transition. You can apply. There'll be a separate entrance, I think, and you'll be able to apply. I think it won't be one; it will be a 2 year course. You'll have to complete a post graduation, so you can do a 2 years master's with 1 year devoted to research, after which you'll be eligible for PsyD. Posting the assignment link again. Can you call yourself a psychologist after a 4 years be honest with research? Yes. What I'll do is I'll also add the assignment link in the description since I think people are having difficulty finding it. Let me know if it's visible, otherwise, it's there in the comments. One has a master's degree in counseling or clinical but doesn't have RCI license. Can you practice as a counselor? Yes, depending on the job opportunities and the eligibility that they have. All right. Any further questions? Whether any specialization is a good course or a bad course? All courses are good. All courses are good if you are interested in them, and all courses, all specializations have scope. There's such a dearth, there's such a scarcity of professionals in our country that whichever field you choose, you will be an expert in a field where you will have scope to work for sure. So no, I haven't been able to add the assignment link to the description because I think the session is already live. So the assignment link will only be available in the comments. Um, I'm adding it again, and I will add it once more just before we end today's session. Can art students study neuropsychology? Yes, of course. A clinical psychologist, as per the Mental Health Care Act, at the moment is someone who's got a license as a clinical psychologist by RCI. So, no, you cannot call yourself a clinical psychologist as per the Mental Health Care Act without having the RCI license. Yes, today's session will stay recorded and live on YouTube on the same link. Any further questions? I'm going to wait another few minutes. Uh, there's no deadline for the assignment. All assignments should be submitted by 15th. Can I do a PhD and PD clinical psychology PG diploma? I think you mean side by side. No, I think there are all full-time courses. Any further questions? Okay, what I'm trying to do now for the last time, I'm going to post this is the link for the assignment. For the written part, I have pinned it. All the best to solve the 8-9 questions in the assignment. And looking forward to have all of you join us tomorrow for day 2 of our internship. As Dr. Parekh said, tomorrow's topic is going to be an orientation to diagnosis from both the perspective of DSM-5 TR and ICD-11. Our two experts will be Dr. Shambhavi Jaiman and Dr. Pradeep Chaudhary, who will be here again from 3 to 6. I think Dr. Parekh will definitely be trying to join in at some point of time. All the best and see you somewhere during the internship before it ends for sure. Otherwise, see you on 15th.